Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the July Norms event. I did a little preview video on this tournament, so if you don't know what this video is about, go watch the video that I made yesterday on July 7th, 2022. I'm playing 9 rounds, and it's a tournament where there's 10 players, everybody plays everybody, and a certain score is required to score an international master norm. I am in the event to get the cobwebs off a little bit, gain some rating points, and friendly reminder that for all the rounds of this tournament, my courses, link is in the first line of the description, will be 33% off if you use the code SUMMER. Going into round number 1, I was playing Brewington Hardaway. I know he's like 12-13. I mentioned in my preview video that I anticipated that he would play e4. He plays some knight f3, plays some d4 like in his online blitz games. And I looked at, first of all, I had a couple of pieces of insight going into this game. And by the way, if I slowly build up energy during this video, it's because it's currently 7 in the morning. I got home yesterday around 11:40, and then I had to eat, shower, and sleep. So, this video is sponsored by our good friends over at the local coffee shop that supply me with this large cold brew. You know, sometimes I talk about coffee in my videos, and some of you comment, if it's got a straw in it, it's not coffee. Is that like a European thing? You drink out of the cups? Is that what that is? You guys gatekeep everything, I swear. So I had a little bit of insight going into this game. My friend actually played Brewington recently and Brewington played e5 c5 against my friend. So it was a game at like a local tournament at the Marshall Chess Club. So I had a feeling he was going to play e5. I looked at his online games as well. And I decided before the game that I was going to go bishop f5. And the reason I decided that I was going to go bishop f5 is because overwhelmingly it seemed like the signs were pointing to the fact that he would play the Tal variation. Now, this is actually my e4 course. I don't think Brewington plays h4 because of my e4 course, but I think he plays h4 because it's a good move. And, here you play h6 with black, you play h5 with black. I've played queen b6. I've played like everything because I've played this position a lot, but I've never played the move that I played during this game. I have been waiting to test out this idea ever since I saw Ari and Tari play it against Vidit Gujarati a couple of months ago in one of these online events, and that move is a6. This is a really interesting move. You don't commit your queen anywhere, right? You don't commit your queen. You wait for g4, which is what happens, and now rather than getting your bishop trapped, which I did not do, you retreat back to d7. But normally you've committed one of these pawn moves, and white will then immediately continue to take space. But the idea here is that by controlling the b5 square, you open up a lot of c5 opportunities as well as e6. And I was using that game as inspiration, the Vidit versus Tari game. That game continued knight c3, although white has a lot of options already. White's best move here, I think, is h5. Just shutting down my opportunity to play h5 myself in the future. h5 is not a move that you play if you're going to go into the system unprepared. During the game, I also thought c4 looked pretty natural. I didn't exactly know what I was going to do. I was considering h5. I was also considering knight h6. But he played knight c3. I played c5. Both of these can be taken, but both of these will also be won back very quickly. He took on c5, and up until this point, trying to win back one of these pawns. He defends the center one. I take. Believe it or not, this position had been reached between Vidit and Tari, and this is where my memory faded. Like all I remembered is that at some point Tari played the move b5, and I thought about playing the move b5 here. The only reason I stopped myself is because I actually thought here that my opponent could do something completely ridiculous and play queen g5. And I didn't know how I was going to defend this pawn. For example, I was even contemplating that if I have to push this pawn, that he could maybe even play h5 and sacrifice his queen. I mean, obviously this is completely ridiculous, and I'm sure that I am completely winning. But I was just like, oh my god, like what if he like sacrifices? And of course, he doesn't even have to sacrifice his queen. Like, of course, Stockfish will show that, that's completely idiotic. But like, just the fact that he's making me weak in my position. And now if I ever try to develop and like castle, for example, like I might just lose, right? It's just mate here. So I really didn't like queen h5, queen g5. And so I decided to play knight e7 first. And this position had been reached between Vidit and Tari also. But in that game, there was bishop d3. So if you look at this position, right, what does black want? Black wants to play b4. That's what I would like to play. But I also would like to maybe play knight c6, knight b4, or knight c6, knight a5, or, you know, if you give me a couple of moves, maybe something like this. Advance my a pawn down the board, soften up this knight, you know, get my c-file pressure moving here. And during the game, I thought that he should get his knight to e2, but first he should develop his bishop. That's what I thought. And then I also thought that he should try to get his knight to h5, because on the h5 square, it does a really nice job of pressuring on g7. After bishop d3, I was half contemplating playing knight c6, so that if he tries to execute this plan, that I would just play knight b4 and just get rid of the bishop entirely. And then that would allow me to castle a little bit easier. But that was just one of the ideas. I mean, I obviously would have played something. But there was another idea that I thought he could play, which was h5. I didn't exactly know what to do if he played h5, because he obviously wants to weaken my dark squares. I thought about h6, but then you have to calculate g5. It's a messy position. But he thought for like 15 minutes and played a3. And the move a3 is a hook. So he doesn't prevent b4 at all. And if anything, he just made it worse for himself. Because now after this exchange, I'm just in, right? Like now the C file is open and the B file is open. And in the long run, my attack is faster. Like now if he tries to play h5, I'm not going to take this pawn. It seems way too risky. With the rooks coming down the G file, this would be a poison pawn. It would open up the G file only for my opponent. But I would just go knight c6. And then rook b8, and I mean, yeah, like, okay, he can get all this, like, dark square stuff, but the b file is now open, so he is actually, like, legitimately getting mated. Really, you should not push pawns where you're being attacked. He should have not touched his queenside pawns, because now, you know, he starts right here, he starts harassing me for a queen trade. And I could probably trade queens and play this endgame with, like, h5, securing the outpost square for my knight on f5, but I thought, why not keep the queen on the board and threaten mate, right? Like, maybe he won't see it. No, that's obviously not what I thought, but I thought, let me keep the queen on the board. He plays queen d4. Now here, again, I'm trying to not trade queens. So I can play queen a5, but I thought, why not give him a check first? Force his king out and then give him a check again. So the idea here is that if he tries to dance back, then I develop with tempo. I avoid the queen trade, you know, when he goes here, and then I come back. He went for a queen trade again. I left. But now his king is stuck in the middle of the board. So I forced his king out. Then I retreated. And now at some point he's going to have to move his king again, right? King is in the middle of the board. Like, everyone's running around the palace, okay, trying to set up a beautiful ceremony, a beautiful dinner. And the king, who's a bozo, who can only take one step every 5 minutes, is just in everybody's way, right? This is just a ridiculous situation. So he goes knight d4, I go knight c6, avoid another queen trade. And then here I kind of thought, like, okay, at some point I'm going to need some pressure down the B and C files, so it's finally time to castle. It looks a little bit spooky to castle into, you know, advanced pawns, but again, I haven't moved any pawns out. I don't have any hooks. For example, if this was the position and I had a hook, I would be in some trouble, actually, because this would open up. But he's quite far, and I'm also even threatening to potentially play the move f6, which would open up the file. I mean, this was just an idea. So he played g5, right? And I played rook fc8, knight b3. And then here things start going awry, okay? So up until this point, I have played confidently and I have played quickly. He has maybe 7-8 minutes on the clock at this point. I have about 50. So I have outplayed him on the clock. I have outplayed him on the board. I am up 40 minutes on time. And then here, I don't know what happened, but a series of really stupid things begin to happen. First of all, I thought about playing a5. And then a4. And according to the Stockfish, it's the best move. And yes, I know that this is like a frequent theme on this channel. I just couldn't really understand why I was playing a4 if he was going to go knight c5 anyway, right? Like that seemed to be the entire idea of this move. So instead I played queen a7, which is still winning for black. But a5 was the best move. And that attacks the pawn on f2. And here I only calculated something to c5, something to d4, and queen e3. And he played king e1. Which, in hindsight, in analyzing with the engine, is not a bad move. But I spent 10 minutes on queen a7 and I didn't even see king e1. So why was I even, like, you know what I mean? So I got frustrated. I spent 10 of my minutes, right? Then I played rook b8. I blitzed this move out. The idea is to go knight b4 to open up the rook to the queen, okay? He goes bishop d3. I go knight b4. And in this position, you know, it's again, winning. I have a couple of ways to do it. This a5, a4 idea is still quite strong, but I decided I'm going to take the bishop, force this, attack the queen, and then attack the knight. So I'm pressuring this, and I mean, the knight is going to f5 as well. Here he plays king f1 with the idea to go king g2. Now, here I probably spent about 8 minutes because I was trying to figure out the difference between bishop b3, cb3, rook b3, and kind of playing this pawn up position, versus delaying that with the move knight f5. And I was calculating, you know, he's going to go here, I'm going to take, he's going to take, I'm going to go rook b2, he's going to play h5 and try to get some counterplay, you know? And that's when it dawned on me that I'm an idiot. Like, what? So again, I spent a ton of time, and I completely missed rook takes c2. Just winning on the spot. I mean, I saw it, but for 8 minutes, I had completely missed rook c2. I didn't even see it. Like, you give me this position, you tell me there's a tactic, I'm going to find rook c2 immediately. But I was calculating the difference between those two lines and trying to see where I had it. So boom! And then I take, and then I take, and then I take. Now I'm up 2 pawns. So I won the whole queen side, and I'm threatening mate. He plays queen e1. He still has about 3 minutes. I have maybe like 35 or something. I centralize my queen. I have 2 ideas, queen c4, queen g4, and obviously just long-term pressure. He goes here. Now, at this point, I'm like, should I go knight g6 or should I go knight f5? If I play knight f5, it's kind of hard for me to attack this pawn. That was my logic. It's kind of hard for me to get to that pawn, you know what I mean? If I play knight g6, I had the idea to go knight f4 and then knight d3. Well, that looks pretty convincing. All right, knight g6. Okay, so that's also not the best move. Knight f5 is the best move. If you watch the game with Stockfish, it's going to tell you, you know, it's -7. It doesn't, like, literally, black could do anything. Okay, so he goes h5, check here. Okay, knight e2 check, king g2. I'm like, where's my win? You know, like, really, where is my win? Because if I go knight d3, I thought he would trade. And yes, I saw a variation in the future that would look something like this. But somehow I started getting scared. I'm like, what if I blunder something on the back rank? Like, if I play rook b5, you know, maybe he will go some knight d4 move. But then there's rook b4, and then check. So king g... like I said, I just started getting spooked. Like, maybe I'm going to screw this up somehow. So I gave him a check, and then I played this fancy move, because knight c1, there's, there's this. And I decided to just make a luft for my king. I thought this is super clever. I will never, ever, ever, and I gave him another check. I will never, ever, ever, ever blunder back rank. Now it's time to go for my plan of getting to the f2 pawn. He played rook h4. I had not even seen rook h4. Like, I didn't even see this move at all. I saw it like 5 moves ago, then I completely forgot about it. Now I'm a little mad, okay? I'm a little mad because I can't find the win. Like, I can't find the win, and now my king is open, right? And, like, rook g4 is on the way. Rook f4, potentially, if I move my knight, is on the way. I can't even go knight f4 anymore. I thought about playing a5, rook b4, right? I thought about a lot of things. I'm like, why don't I centralize my knight to e4, right? He's going to give me a check. I'm going to go here. He might play rook f4. I don't know what he's going to do. So I play knight c3. He blitzes out a move again that I didn't see. I just didn't even consider knight h2, right? I'm like, okay, that's an interesting idea. He wants to play knight g4. I got it. So I'm going to go knight e4. He's going to defend his pawn. I'm going to defend my pawn, and then maybe he's going to bring his rook around, right? So I calculate a little bit, knight e4. And then he blitzes rook f4. So I have gone from being out 45 minutes on the clock and just smooth sailing, playing a wonderful game, to now missing every defensive resource that he's playing. Literally, like for 6 or 7 moves. Totally relaxed myself and totally underestimated his position. I just thought, I'm just going to, like, this is just an easy win. I'm up 2 pawns. Like, what are we even doing here, right? Now suddenly there's problems. For example, if I play queen c3, I suddenly blunder my knight. And, you know, there's this problem. So that doesn't work, right? So after rook f4, I start thinking, okay, you know, maybe I put my knight on g5. He's going to go knight g4. Maybe I play king g7. But it's like, why is my king getting involved? I have all these incredible pieces. Where is my win? It should be there. You know what I mean? Where is it? So I get a little frustrated. I play queen b4. Here I had spent time looking at queen c1 and queen c8, as well as queen e3. These are the two things I calculated. So naturally, I calculate 7-8 minutes. He plays a move I just didn't even, I did not see this move. And by the way, these two moves were better than his move. So I looked at the best moves. He played a move that wasn't as good, but still had a very interesting idea behind it. Yeah, and I mean, like, the idea is just queen g4, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna force a queen trade, right? He gave me a check, I blocked, and I thought, well, now he can't do anything because there's no way his knight gets involved, right? Because I'm targeting f2, and then he played this. And folks, at this point, we're both in the single digits on time. He still has the same amount of time because he gets 30-second bonus. I have like 8 minutes. I am legitimately in my mind doubting if I'm going to win this game. Up 2 pawns, beautiful attack on his king, but his king is completely safe. Everything in his position defends each other, and he's about to go knight g4, knight f3, right? He's about to go knight g4 and knight f3, and I have missed maybe 7 of his moves in a row. No joke. Nothing that I do at this point, for some reason, my brain is completely off. Could be tired, you know what I mean? I don't know what it is. And I'm desperately trying to, like, I have never talked to myself during a chess game. It's just not something that I do. My opponent was off. He was like looking at some other games. I literally started whispering to myself, what are you doing? Like, focus. Are you like, what? Like, what's happening? You know what I mean? Like, totally unraveling here because he is just continuously finding resources. Finally, I find the winning idea. While he's going to commit forces over here, I'm going to the back rank. And by the time he plays one of these moves, I'm going to go queen c1, queen f1, queen g1, queen h1. Like, something's going to happen to that king. There's no way he can cover his back rank. He plays one more move that I did not even think about. And suddenly I'm like, wait a minute. He wants to go knight f3. Like, just so you understand, if I wait even one more move, this is an insane position. I mean, I'm barely in time to survive here. And the only reason I end up surviving at all is because in this position, I have the move rook back to b3. And I pin his knight to his king. I don't have any checks. I pin his knight to his king, and I avoid perpetual check here. I avoid perpetual check because my king is safe on h7. That's it. That is the only reason I avoid anything. And when he goes queen to e7, I now have one final kind of kiss of death. I have to sack my rook. And what happens here is I give him a check, and I'm going to win this pawn, and I'm going to be up 2 pawns in a queen endgame, which is totally winning, but he actually messed it up. He let me check him and check him again. And really, in queen endgames, you want to attack the enemy king and take as many pawns as you can forcefully. So I checked him, and then here, I didn't take the pawn for free. I checked him again, and then I checked him again, right? So you keep trying to take pawns with check, and now this is a totally winning endgame. Just brought my queen back, and I just went and I pushed my pawns. I defended my d4 pawn, and then I walked up to this pawn to take it, and this is just very straightforward. All you have to do here is push the queen forward, push the pawns forward, make sure the king cannot be hit with any queen checks, and white needs to avoid a queen trade desperately. Here's something funny happened. There's no queens on the board, like, because my queen is on the board, and I was too lazy to go to another board to get a queen, so I made a rook. Still winning, but, you know, my opponent resigned here on the 75th move. And, yeah, we avoided disaster. You know what's funny? Some of you know, don't stick around to the final thoughts of the video, but I went home. I was always winning. I was actually always winning. I had a massive drop in confidence and a massive spike in anger toward myself for about 10 moves during this game. Like when he was fighting back here and somehow causing me various headaches of counterplay. But I never let the advantage truly slip. And during the game, I saw so many ways that I could lose. I must have honestly found every way to lose mentally and avoided it on the board. But we won. Good start. Nice opening experiment. It went right. And today we have rounds 2 and 3. So appreciate your support as always. I'm going to be probably not making the recap immediately after each round. It's just too exhausting, especially when I have 2 games a day. But yeah, use code SUMMER, 33% off. New idea in the Caro. Use that in your games. I'll see you for round number 2. Get out of here.